I want to thank you for joining me again as we continue on with our series, From Other to One Another, our daily devotional series that accompanying our Sunday morning sermon series. I want to thank you for joining us for that as we explore the richness of our relationships with one another. Remember in childhood a scene from the movie The Call of the Wild where the dog is subjected to dog fights, and eventually the master who had the dog before finds him and is able to rescue him and take him to safety. But in the midst of that fight, the fangs that were present as the dogs attacked one another and brutalized one another as they sunk their teeth into one another, and just without concern for each other, just ripped each other apart with the idea of maiming and killing each other. In Ephesians chapter 5, or Galatians chapter 5, Paul tells the Galatian believers that they need to stop attacking and biting one another, or they will devour one another. And the idea there that Paul is giving is the ideas of wolves or dogs attacking one another brutally. And he uses that as a thing saying, church, don't act that way. Don't brutalize and attack one another that way. It's a tragedy that Paul would ever have to say that to the church. That seems that would be so common sense for us to not go there. Except over the last few years in social media, I've noticed that we have become more and more aggressive with one another and brutalizing one another, of showing our teeth and our fangs and attacking one another rather than stepping back and trying to understand one another. Later in that chapter, Paul tells them, in defining what that means and how that is lived out, he tells them, do not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. I think the point that he's making there in Galatians chapter 5 verse 26, in the provoking and envying one another, not becoming conceited, is that often what happens is when we are conceited with one another, we go on the attack. And we can do that, and he says that there's two ways that happens. One is he's talking about the weak and the weak and the strong brother in this context of Galatians, where those who think that they are spiritually strong, and they provoke those who are spiritually less strong than they are, or they view that way, and say, get over yourself, grow up, get right. Different kinds of things that go on the attack and provoke one another to bring out the worst in one another. The other thing that there's is the envy one another, and there he's talking about the weak who say of the others, I wish I had the freedom that you have. I wish I didn't have the issue of conscience that I have when it comes to this kind of thing, and I could just be freer. But the issue with both of them is they're self-centered. Don't be conceited. Don't provoke one another. Think about your online presence. I had to repent recently About 3 months ago, I made the decision I've got to stop and I've got to back off some things in social media because I had gotten to a point where I was just on the attack and decided I can't go there anymore. And I unfriended a person, and that person contacted me and asked me about it, and I said, our relationship online has just become so toxic that I can't continue to have these conversations with you. And he understood. What do we do when it becomes so easy to go on the offensive where we bring out the worst in one another?